Hey YouTubers, got another video review for you this week. So we're going to be reviewing the Alpha 1500 watt 12 volt inverter. And I'll be honest, I pulled it out of the package and just glanced at it, but I put it back in there so it looks all nice and shiny for you guys at home. But whenever you get the inverter, it'll be packaged just like this. It'll come with just like one little single piece of paper for an instruction sheet. It's very minimal, but the instructions are pretty good. There is some misspellings in there, but you know, it's nothing real major. And as far as the packing goes, it's packaged pretty well. Comes in the plastic, comes in the styrofoam on each end. We're going to go ahead and pull it out. We're not going to waste a whole lot of time on an unboxing. First thing that you'll notice when you pull it out is, wow, this thing is blue. And then the next thing that you'll notice is the size. This thing is pretty small. It is got a lot packed in there for a 1500 watt inverter. We'll measure it up and see just how small it is. So measuring from the very edge right here all the way to where the terminals stick out right there, it's gonna be right at 13.5 inches. And then it's gonna measure 6 inches this way. And then the height measures just under 3 5/8. So I do have to say the dimensions are small, but I was comparing my measurements to the one that's on the Amazon listing for the inverter. And so I will say that the Amazon listing measurements read 11 by 6 by 3. So it's actually off on the listing on Amazon. So Alpha does need to make a correction on Amazon and put the right measurements in there. So more people might buy it if they actually know the correct size, because it is such a small footprint of an inverter that, you know, somebody might need it to go in a tighter location. It says that it weighs just under 6.5 pounds, so it doesn't weigh very much either, on top of being pretty small. All right, so one thing that I did notice, that whenever I unboxed it, you know, there is no wires. And I guess that's a good thing, because a lot of these Chinese inverters, they come with undersized wires that are pretty dangerous. So I'm glad they didn't include them, just simply because a lot of people that don't know would probably go ahead and use them, and they run the risk of burning their house down. Now later in the video, I will show you that Alpha has come out with some wires that you can purchase that are they look to be, you know, of good quality. Anyways, I like the casing on this inverter. I believe the blue part, don't hold me to it, but I believe it is an anodizing. But it is like an aluminum alloy, and it's really strong. Even on this back panel here, on some inverters, you can push them and deflect them. This one here is super stout. I tested it, and even the end caps on the case, they're made out of aluminum as well. Here on the end, you can see that it's got these terminals that screw on without a tool. You don't need a wrench or anything to tighten them down. It's just an insert into that plastic there. And some of you might like it, some of you might not. I really wish they would have put something here in the middle, like a piece of a divider, piece of plastic, just so your wires don't accidentally touch. You know, just make sure when you put these on there, that you put them on there pretty tight so they don't slip. And you do have a couple of vents here for your fans. And then for mounting the unit, you can see right here, there's a little slot there and a little slot there for mounting it. And then flipping it over to the other side, you can see that you got your mounting area here on this end, and then you've got a rocker switch. I've told you guys before, I guess I'm old school. I like the rocker switches better than I do the buttons, so that is a plus. There is a light right in here. I assume that's going to be a green light once you get everything hooked up. Then you got 2 AC outlets here on the bottom. And then up here you've got 2 different displays. I'm not sure what they are for till I get it hooked up. Not used this inverter before. Now, one thing to mention, if you go to mount this inverter and you mount it like this, and you have to have it mounted like this, obviously you don't want to read it upside down. So what you would do is just take the screws out of the end on this side and the screws out on this end, and you can take this cover, spin it around, and put it right side up. Now back to the terminals there. I forgot to mention they are M8 terminal. They're not undersized like some of the cheaper inverters that have some like super small studs on there. So we're going to be using the Redodo 200 amp hour plus battery to be supplying the power to the 1500 watt 12 volt inverter. And I said earlier in the beginning of the video that Alpha did not supply any wiring with this inverter, and it's probably a good thing because, you know, a lot of inverters always come with those cheap wires and they're undersized. Well, they actually have got on board and realized, I guess enough reviewers had commented on, you know, these cheap wires, that they actually have come out with some that are of good quality. And I've been playing around with these, just testing on them to see if they are what they say they are. And I gotta say, I'm pretty impressed. Alpha does offer these. These are 2-gauge wires, and they offer them in 1-foot lengths and 2-foot lengths. These are the 1-foot, and I think they're like $15 or $16. Yeah, $15.99 for the 1-foot, or $24.65 for the 2-foot. And it says they're 2-gauge. It comes with a 3/8 hole for the stud, so it'll definitely accommodate your M8 studs on your battery and your inverter. It says the wires or the terminals are tinned, and I did confirm that they are tinned. I did take a piece of sandpaper and I scuffed them, and it is copper up underneath there, so the actual lugs are actually copper, and the lugs are pretty thick. The wiring is really flexible. It does have like a silicone jacket on there and all that. It does have the heat shrink tubing on there, and it's already professionally crimped and all that. So the wires do look really good. If you don't want to make your own, then if you just want simplicity, you can buy these. They are good quality wires. We'll see here in a minute if they get hot or any of that when we hook it up. So these wires are oxygen-free copper, so that's exactly what you want. And like I said in the beginning, the terminals are tinned, so if you're working in a marine environment, they're not going to corrode or any of that on you. Now, I took it a step further and I measured both of these wires here, and I measured from the very center of the hole there on that lug to the center of the hole on this, and it was 12 3/4. So they're actually a little bit longer than what it says in the advertisement, so I guess that's a good thing. Makes it a little bit easier to hook it up. But make sure that you get the appropriate size. Like I said, they've got it in the 1-foot and the 2-foot. And, you know, I did purchase these with my own money. I normally recommend that you guys use like the New Concepts wire. That's what I prefer. But if you just want simplicity, you can buy these already pre-made and this, that, and the other. So it makes it a little bit faster for you if you don't feel like doing the crimping and heat shrinking and all that. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and show you guys how to hook it up. I know most of you know how to hook it up, but for you new guys, I'm going to go ahead and show you. Whenever you put your wire on there, you want to go ahead and put your flat washer first, and then you want to put your split ring or lock washer, whatever you want to call it, next. And then you want to put your nut on the end right in there, and just go ahead and tighten it up. You want to leave it kind of loose. So before you make your final connection to your battery, you want to use a resistor. These are just 30 ohm ceramic resistors. And before you make that final connection, you want to take the resistor and touch it to the wire like that, and then touch it to the battery. And the reason you do that is so you can charge up the capacitors inside the power inverter, and so that there's no spark. A lot of times if you don't use a resistor like this, there's so much power going from that battery into that inverter, it causes a spark. This way there's no spark and there's no chance in damaging the capacitors on the inside. So if you're interested in these, they're linked down in the description below. Now watch when I touch this to the terminal, there's going to be no spark. No spark at all because I use that resistor. And then go ahead and put your battery terminal bolt on, and it's an M8. And go ahead and tighten this one down now. And you ain't got to go crazy tightening these down because you don't want to strip that nutsert out. But make sure they are nice and snug. And keep in mind, if you are hooking this up to a battery for long term, make sure you use a fuse to protect your wiring. The fuse is to protect the wiring, not the actual inverter. But make sure you use a fuse. You don't want to end up burning the wiring up and starting a fire, any of that kind of stuff. Alright, so I've got the inverter hooked up to the battery, and so we're going to come down here and we're going to test this out first. You can see that there's two USB ports, and it says they're 2.1 amp. We're going to test them and see if they have power without the inverter being turned on. We've got these little DC light bulbs that plug into a USB port. I use these all the time. They use like 5 watts of power. They got a little switch, so you know, if you don't want to turn the inverter on and you just want to run power off the battery, these things are really handy. Like I said, 5 watts of power. You can take them camping with you, plug them into like a portable power station and all that. I keep them around the house just in case the power goes out. And we'll test the one above it. There's power going to it, so that's a good sign. And now we're going to go ahead and turn the inverter on. You can see when I switched it on, there's the green light letting you know that it's hooked up correctly. And then right there it says the battery voltage is at 13.7, 13.8. And then right there it shows that your AC voltage is at 108 volts. And then down below that is your amps. So there's obviously nothing plugged into it. And so anyways, we're going to go ahead and get to testing it. So stay tuned. We're going to get crazy. All right, guys. So you can see that I've got this little cord plugged in coming up here to my little box. The reason I do this is just for safety. To hook up this oscilloscope, you can see that I've got it alligator clipped on this side, and then I'm going to probe it on this other side, and you'll be able to see the sine wave down below. And let's see, you can see that the sine wave is nice and clean. That's with no load on it. We'll test it with a load here in just a second, but you know, so far so good. The sine wave says that it's all nice and clean. It says that it's at 60 hertz. So that part looks pretty good. All right, so we're going to do a little load test on it, and I went ahead and got a watt meter plugged into this little box here, and then I've got it hooked up to this heater down here in the floor. I'm going to go ahead and turn it on. Right now it's putting out a 1230, 1260, 1300, 1440, 1450, 1430. Now I know that this heater does surge. I've tested it many times. It does surge up to 1581 watts. I test it with a kilowatt meter. It tells me the highest wattage plugged into it, and 1581 is the highest that it's surged up to. So I know that it goes above the 1500 rated watts. But right now it's only using 1372 watts. You can see right there on the watt meter, and you can see that on the oscilloscope that there is no distortion. Even with a 1370 watt load on it, it's still nice and clean, distortion free. All right, so I've been running the heater there for just a few minutes, and the fans just now kicked on, and they have a little bit of a high-pitched noise to it because it's such a small little fan, but it's not really loud. Like I said, it does have a higher pitched noise to it than what you might get with a larger fan. So if that bothers you, then you know you might get something with a larger set of fans in it. But seems like they're cooling, and we'll test it here in a minute. But anyways, I just wanted to let you know right now that with just the heater going, it's putting out 1375 watts. We are going to plug in a box fan and see if we can run that wattage up there. Now, obviously, there's not enough room to plug 2 things in the kilowatt meter, but you know, the box fan's going to be on the bottom. It uses about 50 to 70 watts, somewhere in there. But we'll test it out. We'll turn it on low. It's already running on low. And again, just the heater's at 1375, and with the heater on low, that's another 50 watts. So it's just under 1500 watts. So you can see that I've got the heater going down there on high, and it's using 1371 watts, and then I've got this box fan on high, and it's using roughly between 50 to 70 watts, but on high it's usually about 70 watts. On low it's usually around 50 something watts. I can't remember the exact number, but it ranges from about 50 to 70 watts, and the inverter is just barely feeling warm, but doesn't feel hot at all. The fans are going pretty good, and you can tell that they're spinning pretty fast. The cables are just like lukewarm. So anyways, we're gonna test it out with a thermal imaging camera and see if there's something getting hot on here that I can't feel. We'll check the terminals back here, so make sure you stay tuned. Alright guys, so I've got the thermal imaging gun here, and I'm sitting here shooting on the top of the inverter, and you can see right there in the middle where the little crosshairs are that it's right here at my finger, and that's about 95 degrees right there at the very end. And then you can see right there it says 135, and that 135 is picking up right in here the air coming out of those vents. You can see that it's picking up right there. It says it's 137, 138. So that those fans are definitely pushing that air in or out. Let's see which way it's going. Yeah, it feels like it's sucking the air coming this way. So yeah, it is getting a little warm right in there, but not crazy. And then down here at the end of the inverter, you can see it's about 90 degrees. And then if you come right here, I'm gonna put my hand right there, and you can see where I'm pointing. It shows about 79 degrees on the cables. So the cables are just barely getting warm. Let's check it over here on this negative cable. It says 75 degrees on it. Then if you come over to the battery terminal, it shows it's about 82 degrees right there on that terminal. And then shows 81.3 degrees on the positive terminal. And then it shows right here on top of the battery 81.3. And then if you check the terminals on the back of the inverter, I know it kind of reflects, the image kind of reflects a little bit because the terminals are so close together on this inverter and there's nothing separating them. But you can see that they're about 100 and 101, jumps down to 99. They're not crazy. Looks like it's a nice and cool. Those wires aren't getting hot at all. They're just warm. And then let's back up to the top of the inverter. Still about 92, 93 degrees, 95 towards the end here. Let's go over to the end of the inverter, and you can see right there where I've got it pinpointed there in the middle, it's about 112, 113, 115. And then it seems like it's picking up a little bit hotter coming out of those vents right there. So I guess that's to be expected. So I have been running this inverter at its capacity for over 5 minutes now. I'm still running that heater down there on high, and then I'm running the box fan there on speed number 3, and just the heater alone is putting out 1363, 64 watts. It's fluctuating back and forth, and the thing seems to be running fine. It's a little bit warm, but you know, not hot. This is right where it needs to be, and like I said, I tested it with a thermal imaging camera, and it seems to run just fine. I can't have any complaints about it being able to run its power. It's doing a good job. So anyways, the cables are just a little bit warm, but they're not hot. That's pretty much normal temperature for them. And then right there at the terminals, they are getting a little bit warm there at the terminal, but nothing dangerous or any of that. Now, I gotta say, so far so good. I'm pretty impressed with it being able to run this much of a load. It got a good clean sine wave, and anyways, I'm gonna do some more testing on it. So I just wanted to show you guys that it's able to run it as advertised. That's as close to the 1500 watt mark as I could get it. So pretty impressed so far. All right, so I know you guys are gonna ask me, about the standby power consumption of this inverter, and you can see that it's turned on. There's nothing plugged into it, and you can see that I've got my Kuwait's clamp meter here, and I have zeroed it out, and I turned the light on, and you can see that it reads 0.7 amps. And if you translate that over to watts, that is 8.4 watts. So it is a pretty low power consumption when it's on standby mode. So gotta say that's pretty good. So if you guys are looking for a good clamp meter, this one's a Coeit's brand. It is a model HT206D. This one does AC and DC, so it's perfect for clamping on cables and letting you know your standby power and all this. And so check it out. I'll put a link down below in the description. This thing's like $47.99 on Amazon. So if you don't want to spend the big money on a flute but want to have a lot of the bells and whistles, this one's pretty neat. It does have backlighting on it, which is really handy. And then you can mash it and hold it in, and it lights up right in here. So it is pretty cool. It's got some cool features. I'm not going to bore you guys with all that. But if you're interested in this clamp meter, make sure you check out it in the description. All right, now one thing that I noticed with this inverter, I was reading the Amazon listing, and right here on the second about this item, it says safety precautions. It says that it has under voltage and over voltage protection, over temperature protection, overload protection, cooling funds, not cooling fans, cooling funds. That's Chinese for you. But anyways, and then it says ground fault circuit interrupter protection, meaning like your GFCI outlets, like in your bathrooms. And so I have a GFCI tester here, and we're going to see if it really is GFCI protected. You know, there might be somebody out there that knows more than I do about this, but normally when it's got the GFCI plugs, then it has the resettable circuit there. So, you know, just like the ones in your bathroom. So unless there's something going on internally that I'm not smart enough to know about, then I should be able to match this button here, and it should turn the, I would assume that it would reset the power inverter. So we're gonna test it real quick. If you're interested in one of these, you can pick these up for like $5.50 at Walmart. They're really cheap. Or if you're interested, I'll find one that's a good quality. I'll put it in the link down below. You can buy one from Amazon. But we're gonna test it out. And when I mash the button, it doesn't do a thing. So to me, it seems like that's not even, like it doesn't even work. So like I said, if there's something that I'm not doing correct, make sure some of you guys that might know more than I do, put it in the description down below. But when I test this in my bathroom and I mash the button, it trips that outlet, and you can't use it until you actually push it in and reset it. With this, it should be doing the same thing, since this is GFCI protected, I would assume. It says that it is. So anyways, that's really my only complaint about the inverter, is saying that it is protected, and I don't believe that it is. As far as you know, the fans, they are a little high pitched and maybe just a tad bit noisy, but you got to keep in mind they are a small fan. If it was me, I would love to see them upgrade the fans and put a bigger fan that doesn't have to turn so fast to move a lot of air to keep it cool. And I think that it would be a better inverter if they put up some bigger fans in it. But as far as I'm concerned right now, it is a good inverter. It does put out the 1500 watts. We got it up there as close as we could get, and you know, it seemed to hold it just fine. So I gotta say, I'm pretty impressed with that. And $189, so you're getting quite a bit of inverter in a small package for cheap. So again, pretty impressed. So anyways, I'm gonna wrap this video up, and I appreciate you guys sticking around. I know this thing is a long drawn out video and all that, but I hope it helped you guys out and taught you something about this inverter. And if you're interested, make sure you check in my description down below. Like I said before, I'm an Amazon affiliate. You buy from my link, I get like a tiny commission, you know, if you was to purchase the inverter. But so I just wanted to do this testing so you guys don't have to and all that. But you know, if anything that you've seen here in the video, I'll put a link for it down in the description if you want get one and use it yourself. But I gotta say, I've been impressed with the inverter today, and I think you guys will be too. So until next time, thanks for watching. See ya. Please like and subscribe.